In this video, let's talk about how to create revenue and profit forecasting for a new business, which is much more difficult to do than for an existing business because you don't have previous data to base things on. So it's really going to be educated guess because we really cannot predict the future that well. The one thing that's the same is, of course, you need to have a timeline for your forecast. It could be 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever you like. Of course, it's not that difficult to know what your expenses might be. You know what your employees cost, salaries might be. You know what your rent is. So a lot of the fixed and variable costs are relatively predictable. Of course, is going to be room for error, but it's relatively predictable. What's really hard is to predict the revenue because you don't know if you're going to be making $0 or $1 million, right? There's a couple of ways, a couple of tactics people use to predict what your revenue might be. And this is either by yourself knowing your industry deeply or by hiring a consultant who maybe has been a successful entrepreneur in your industry who can tell you what can be expected, or you can base your projected revenue and income on competitive similar businesses. This has some pros and cons. Of course, if you take Facebook, for example, let's say you're starting a new social network and you decide to base your own projections on Facebook, which is your competition because you might be starting a social media business. Well, then guess what? You'll say, my business is obviously projected to make $1 billion. And of course, that's wrong for almost all businesses. So you always want to understand when you're basing things on competition, you want to get a full range of businesses and have a really deep understanding of what really happens to new social network businesses. Of course, many of them die in silence. We don't even know that they existed. Some of them become niche social networks, like maybe social networks only for basketball fans or sports fans. So maybe they go niche. So it's possible that comparing yourself to Facebook was wrong in the first place because very few actual social media sites are like Facebook. So there are some pitfalls with directly comparing yourself to other companies and basing your projections on those companies. I recommend doing a combination of all three. Definitely research your competitive companies that are very similar to yours and see how it was for them when they started out. The problem is that many, of course, are private companies and it's not that easy to get that knowledge. It's not that easy to get their current revenue because many companies are private. So because of that, you might want to hire executives or founders of those companies as consultants or coaches so they can explain to you what you can expect. Of course, the best option also is if you have deep knowledge and experience in the industry in which you're starting your business, because if you do, you will have much more confidence in your projections and they will be based on your experience and knowledge. That's why it's always recommended that people start companies in an area in which they know. So those are the three ways kind of to use to get a good sense of how you should project your revenue and profit and what you can expect. In addition to those, you always have to look at your ecosystem. If sometimes online I kind of call them ecosystems. Like if you're selling on Amazon, then of course your ecosystem is Amazon. If you're selling courses on Udemy, then your ecosystem is Udemy. If you're on some other website like YouTube, you have to consider how that's growing. Or if you are a local business, for example, which is another very common type of a business, then you want to consider the health of your current area. Are you in a city or neighborhood that has improving demographics? People are moving in who are wealthier, or opposite. So that's also something to consider. And then you have to consider the overall economy growth. So like, is the economy in an upcycle? So that means for the next couple of years, you can expect at least no hiccups and general spending growth from consumers. But if the economy is in a down cycle, you want to be extra careful because that's extra risk. People will not spend money as freely and your business might have trouble growing. So you also want to create your customer profile and estimate what percentage of your target market you might be able to capture based on the differentiation of your company. Maybe you offer something that a part of the target market will really appreciate, and so you can count on them switching over from whatever they currently use as their solution to your business. And of course, you want to be able to research general market trends. What I wanted to suggest is one website. It's census.gov. You get a lot of data and census information and statistics of how people are spending, what people are doing, the demographics of different areas. So that way you can understand what's happening within your local ecosystem and maybe even your greater ecosystem, like parts of the economy that your business is concerned with. So these are all the ways that will help you make good, solid projections for a business that has not even started.